Hey everyone, welcome to this MTZ Insiders update. Today we're going to be talking about Pluto generations. When were you born and where was Pluto in the sky during your birth and what this means for you personally. So as always, a bit of a preface here. We are going to be using the actual signs of the constellations called true sidereal astrology. If you're used to mainstream signs and the Pluto dates for mainstream astrology, those are very different from the ones we're using. Today we're going to be using where Pluto was actually at relative to the Earth during these years, and again, what it means for us both collectively and personally. So what we'll do first is we'll take a look at going backwards in time. Right now, Pluto is in Sagittarius, and this has been, a lot of changes to perception, perspective, and this is how we're inducing change at this time. So we'll talk about what that means now, but it'll also include anyone born from 2007. So for those of you who have kids and want to see what their Pluto sign is, but we're going to work our way backwards from here. We'll look at what is now Sagittarius, then we'll look at Ophiuchus, we'll go backwards to Scorpio, and then Libra, and then Virgo. And so this can give you an idea of what you were going through at that time of your life, looking backwards, and maybe noticing some transformations that were occurring at that time in this way. And then once we get to your actual birthday, that should show what your overall life energy is about and how you induce change and how your generation induces change and empowers yourselves. So let's go and start with that. Let's start with, first of all, what Pluto really represents, right? Pluto is the deepest part of the planets that we look at and the deepest part of the self that we look at. It represents the sort of shadow self or the unconscious self, the side that wants to induce change. But sometimes this change is very uncomfortable, right? And we're not willing to do that because our egos, our more physical selves, don't like change at all, right? We want structure, we want routine, we want predictability. We want control, right, as an ego. But Pluto is that deeper side of ourselves that does want to release control and really allow for change and transformation. So this can represent not so much our personality because, again, it's so deep in our psyche, but it represents more of how we induce change, how we can empower ourselves, and by embodying some of these constellation energies, can empower ourselves and induce that change, and really reintegrate with that side of ourself that does want to do things that involve empowerment, facing fears, and again, change and transformation. All right, so let's go and take a look at where Pluto is now. So Pluto is in Sagittarius. Again, if you're expecting me to say Capricorn, definitely check out that link down below for more information. We are using the actual constellations, but if you look up at the sky with a telescope, of course, you will see Pluto in Sagittarius at this time. So Pluto's been here since 2007 and will be until 2024. So if you think back, for those of you, since 2007, this has been really a time of transformation to our perception. And when I say perception, Sagittarius rules things like spirituality, rules higher learning, higher beliefs, higher perspectives on life in general, sometimes travel and adventure and more free-spirited things. So this is how we've been transforming ourselves since 2007. And of course, again, for those of you who have kids, if they're born after 2007, they're going to have this kind of energy about them. They'll induce change by, transforming perception and perspective, and possibly very spiritually, since again, Sagittarius does rule things like religion, spirituality, and higher perspectives. All right, so next is between the years of 2001 to 2007. If you think back to that time period of your life, or again, if you know anyone born during this time, this has been transformation through healing and empowerment. Ophiuchus, Pluto's been in Ophiuchus, the constellation of the healer, and the serpent bearer, which is about working with the deeper dimensions of life in order to induce change. So Pluto is quite comfortable here because it's a very similar energy to what Pluto represents. In this case, the shadow, right? So excavating, bringing things to the surface that are normally hidden, right? And in this way, perhaps accepting. It's this great opportunity during this time, 2001, 2007, to accept these deeper aspects of the self and of life, and of the shadow aspects of self and of life, and to do some healing work, right? So it was, has been a really good time to do that during those years, and anyone born with this energy is going to have that healer archetype very strongly in the sense of how they can, empower themselves to do it, to face the fears, to excavate things, to face the shadow and reintegrate with the shadow, most importantly, to accept it as an aspect of ourselves, right? The unconscious, all the stuff, the aspects of ourselves that we've hidden away. It's about reintegrating with this, becoming more whole, more of our true selves, which is the full spectrum of the human experience, and doing things to induce that type of healing change. Now, before that, 1996 to 2001, that was Pluto in Scorpio. So during that time, it's been, it was very good for inducing change through, again, excavating the deeper dimensions, not so much healing with them or working with them as much as it was about truth. What was the core of the matter? How can we bring things to the surface so that we can become aware of them, right? And so anyone born during that time, 96 to 2001, has this deep energy about them. Again, generationally, every personality is different, but to induce change through excavation, through bringing things to the surface, through developing the truth or expressing the truth, and really connecting in a way that really is at the core of the matter, what really matters at the end of the day. And sometimes really having to remove walls, remove structures, remove boundaries sometimes, in order to induce this type of change that we need in life sometimes. And this can be very deep emotionally, right? And also psychologically in terms of the change that we can induce. All right, so maybe notice some patterns there during your life involving that Scorpio energy of how you were changing collectively. All right, and then prior to that, we have 1988 to 1996. The Pluto was in Libra. And so this has to do with mostly change through what's fair and just and right, and also change through relationships sometimes. So this generation and during this time, it was a great time for transformation through how we're relating with others, to do what's fair, what's right, what's reciprocating, what's mutual, and just in general connecting and finding that middle ground and that balance was the way in which we were transforming. So through those relationships is always great with this, and through all forms of finding more balance and bringing things back into balance in our life. So that was Libra with Pluto 1988 to 1996. And then now we get to the very large constellation. So Virgo, from 1968 to 1988, those again born here or experienced energy at that time, this was change through our work and service. That is how we induce change. Maybe it was through our jobs, our works, our careers. Maybe it was through personal development or health or improvement, right? This is all Virgo. It's all about striving towards improvement and refinement. And when Pluto's here, this is how we induce change, and this is how we transform our lives. Now, prior to that, 1947 to 1968, Pluto was in Leo. So the way in which we transform here is through our self-expression. So if you're born during this time or experienced energy during this time, it was through your self-expression that you transformed, right? We can see that a lot with that history too. That was like the start of rock and roll, all the way to the apex of rock and roll there in like 69, you could say. Obviously went on longer than that, but it's very, very important time for self-expression, right? And so it's all about doing what we're passionate about. What do we love, right? What do we find interesting, and really what gives us that energy and vitality? It was through this gaining of energy and expressing ourselves that we transformed in a generational sense. So again, if you're born with this energy, this is a great way of transforming yourself, is to express yourself, whether it's quite literally, whether it's through hobbies or interests, whether it's through your passions or the things or people you love in life. This is the way of transformation. All right, and then we'll go ahead and end with Cancer. So 1933 to 1947, this would have been a time of transforming through more home values and more of what gives us emotional security and creating a protective environment for ourselves and others. So getting into our caring and nurturing and protective side would have been the path towards transformation. All right, so I hope this video was helpful. I hope this gave some context in terms of the actual Pluto generations, because again, the constellations are different sizes, and so this is using the actual size of the constellations. And hopefully this gave some good perspective in terms of how to work with the very deep part of ourselves to induce change, how we can do that, and what this means for those generations and how they'll likely do that. All right, so everyone have a great one. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next MTZ update. Take care.